What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Your guys, Derek and Cody, with you. Guys, we're legal tampering free agency eve at this point. That is a mouthful. Wow. Anyways, guys, we're only a couple, basically almost 24 hours away at this point from legal tampering allowed to be starting for NFL teams, where teams are allowed to contact any player that they so choose to, offer deals, just aren't able to actually sign them pen to paper yet. But we're at that point now, Cody, and it's been still a little bit dry for the Indianapolis Colts the last couple days. We saw on the 5th of March that the Indianapolis Colts decided to use the franchise tag on Michael Pittman. So he is indeed locked down for at least this year. We don't know when an extension is going to be coming. But so far with everyone else, though, Indy really hasn't done anything else yet. And this is the last day, Cody, that Indianapolis is going to be able to, say, hey, like, here's a deal for you. And this is going to be the last chance that Ballard has before tomorrow, where other teams are going to be able to start calling and saying, hey, we got these deals for you guys. Come to our team. So it's the last opportunity that Ballard really has at this moment in time when we're recording this, that Ballard hasn't done anything yet with re-signing anyone. What do you think's going on here, man? You think that we'll see some news before the official start of free agency on Wednesday, or do you think that there's going to be some more details that need to come out before we start seeing that?
I do think we will see some. I think the Colts won't let all these guys test free agency. I do think we'll see some news here, if not tonight, early tomorrow, in regards to some of these guys. I mean, some of these guys that were critical to the success of your football team a year ago. And so I do think that, and maybe that is kind of, maybe the Colts are, their priority right now is getting or acquiring that free agent, the guy like L'Jarius Sneed that we've known they've been in on. And then they're like, okay, then we got to figure out who are the guys we want to keep, as a result of that. But yeah, as far as their own free agents, I mean, we talked about it. I mean, really 3 guys that you're like, you would really like to keep all 3 if you're able to. Obviously, you talk about Pittman being, franchise tag, so you can kick the can down the road a little bit if you want to. But yeah, I do think that Indianapolis will at least get, a couple of these guys locked down here. I would think that Kenny Moore would be the top priority right now for the Indianapolis Colts. And then, a guy like Grover Stewart, those 2 guys I think are the 2 most important and probably the least replaceable, especially Derek, considering the markets for the, other 2 positions, corner and defensive tackle compared to safety. And we know how deep that market is. And so while you'd like to have Julian Blackmon back, it's like, if not, there's plenty of options where you could bring in an outside free agent and feel pretty good about, both safety positions, honestly. So, yeah. So to answer your question, I do think the Colts will get, at least with a couple of these, bigger name guys that have been critical to their success. Traditionally, we've seen Chris Ballard, reward those guys who have performed well and have done good things, for the organization. And so I do think we'll see some news coming out here in the next couple hours or the next, 12 hours or something like that, before official free agency starts, or before, legal tampering starts. And I think we'll see some stuff. I really do.
Yeah. So, I mean, of course, when it comes down to what's going on right now with the last 2 guys, with Michael Pittman, obviously franchise tagging him, Colts still looking to get a deal done. And apparently Blue Stables, Robin Lucas, Jay Lucas was coming in saying that a deal is indeed close for both Kenny Moore and Michael Pittman. We'll have to see if that is in fact coming shortly or not. I mean, again, we have no idea. Their guess is as good as ours, but it would be nice to be able to kind of see what Pittman and Kenny Moore both could get, because then the more these guys get signed or re-signed or not re-signed, kind of gives you a better understanding of what kind of market or what kind of cap room you're leaving yourself with for the remainder of this, right, Cody? Because we were talking about it, with Mike. If we re-signed Michael Pittman, Kenny Moore, Grover Stewart, and Julian Blackmon as well. We're probably both guessing right around that $50 million mark at where we would see that. And then that would leave the Indianapolis Colts with about $23 million in cap for the remainder of the offseason. And that's a number. If we have more than that, then that's great. But if we're looking at that number, I'd like to know just to be able to see like what else Ballard is able to work with, because he's not going to let all the rest of the 14 free agents that are that were part of this Colts team last year go to walk. I mean, he could potentially bring back Zach Moss. He could potentially bring back a Tyquan Lewis, potentially bring back a Gardner Minshew. You think he's going to bring back Rigoberto Sanchez, which is going to cost a couple million. So it's all about trying to figure out like who you have left available within that. I don't know, man. Like I think we've kind of already talked about this, and I think it was about a month ago, but of the remaining guys, like of the big core guys, right? Like Kenny Moore, Grover Stewart, Julian Blackmon, which of those guys do you think has the most likely chance that Ballard lets them walk and just is not happy with the price tag, is willing to just move on from it and just look for something somewhere else?
I would say probably safety, like we talked about, with how saturated the market is. If Julian Blackmon's wanting, too much for what Chris Ballard thinks, and you look at the market, you're like, we could get a guy for a couple $1 million cheaper that actually might be able to stay on the field for 17 games. I could see that being a reality for the Indianapolis Colts and everything like that. Grover Stewart's an interesting one because, obviously, Derek, we know how good he is, but, when you do think about it, I know it's not like the easiest thing to replace, but I mean, compared to some positions like a run stopping defensive lineman isn't super valuable. Like it's valuable. Like don't hear me. Like, I'm not saying Grover's not valuable, but I think compared to like a playmaker or compared to an edge rusher, like those things take priority, even in a lockdown corner. It's kind of farther down the list on importance, and not to mention Grover's, on the wrong side of 30 now. And so there's some of those factors that contribute into there as well. And obviously Grover was so valuable to your run defense last year, so you'd like to keep him. But I mean, I think those are the two, but I think Blackmon, just because of how saturated the market is, for me, is probably the easiest replaceable guy. And I think that's probably what the Colts are thinking, because, I mean, Derek, you could easily find two other safeties that could play pretty well and pretty good football with how, like, it feels like there's a lot of, a couple like superstar guys, and then there's a lot of like Pro Bowl caliber type of guys. And so I really do think for Indianapolis, it could make a ton of sense for them to really go all in on safety and not spend a lot of money doing it, just because of how saturated the market is. So, I mean, if Blackmon wants to take a reasonable deal, for the market, I'm all for it. But I could see that being a reality. But I think the one that least, goes, I guess, is probably Kenny Moore, just because of how valuable he is. And it's so hard to find, a good slot corner in this league. And so I do think Kenny Moore is a guy that's going to be a priority, even if the Colts were to go make a big splash in free agency at corner, and go get a guy like L'Jarius Sneed. I mean, Derek, we know, how valuable it is to have Kenny Moore on this roster. And so I really do feel like he's going to be the number one priority. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of names, like you mentioned, that the Colts have to kind of figure out. And I do wonder as well, within that, are there some guys that they're going to and saying, hey, we want to restructure your deal a little bit. We want to save some cap space this year so that we can have a little bit more flexibility to do some things next year. I could see that potentially being a thing the Colts do here and kind of give themselves some more freedom, because we know, Derek, you can manipulate the cap. Now, obviously, cap space is real, and you need to be aware of that. You can't go be like the Buffalo Bills and find yourself having to release half your roster, but so you have to be reasonable with it, but I do think you can, in certain ways, help yourself out financially and clear a decent amount of cap space so that you can potentially make another splash move. So, that's kind of how I'm feeling about free agency right now for the Colts. There's a lot of ways, and I feel like just that's kind of the nature of it, Derek, with having a quarterback on a rookie deal, right? It's like you can do a lot of this stuff here in the first couple of years, really the first 4 or 5 years, you can do a lot. And so, with how many impact free agents are out there, including your own guys, I think it makes sense for the Colts to be a little bit more active. Now, will they? That's another question. But I think they should, in a lot of ways, be a lot more active.
Yeah, and to go off of the question I was asking you, I mean, I think that I totally agree with you that with the safety market being so saturated with talent, I do believe it's much easier to replace Julian Blackman because even then, if you lost Julian Blackman, you still look at it and say we could get another big piece at safety. It might cost more, sure, might cost us a few extra million more, but we could get someone of the same caliber, if not better, potentially. Even though I think there's very few safeties on the safety market that are actually better than Julian Blackman. But I said it in a tweet the other day, and I think you said it as well, that with the with the safety market being so saturated the way it is, it's probably going to reduce contracts, to be completely honest with you, because everyone's looking for a new safety. Everyone. And every team is going to have the same approach. Listen, unless the guys that really waited out are getting there, but everyone's going to have the same argument. There's what 20 safeties on the market that I
Still
could start right
100.
now on this team that I don't need you. I don't need to pay you $10 million. I don't need to. I can go get Timbuktu over here for $3 million and I'm going to get similar production. I know it out of him versus you. And you're charging me 3-4 times more. Like, I'm not going to do that. And that's what every safety is going to have to deal with. Even the elite ones, even the really good ones that are on the market are all going to have to deal with the same thing. And I've kind of had my things about Grover Stewart. I would love to have Grover Stewart back, but I'm certainly not wanting to do it for $10+ million a year. I know he's one of the better run stopping defensive tackles in the league, but he's not a pass rusher. He's not a pass rusher. He doesn't do anything for you in the pass rush, honestly. And when you're one dimensional like that and you're getting paid towards, one of the top guys, I'm not in that business right now. Like you said, he is 30 years old. And I know everyone's going to come after me and say, we get rid of Grover Stewart and then watch our run defense just absolutely diminish. Well, the problem was whoever you had behind Grover Stewart right after that wasn't good at their job. That's the problem. So you can go get a guy that's relatively good at the job for maybe half the price. And, maybe your run production still drops off a little bit, but it doesn't have this tremendous 40, 45 yard average every game difference like what we saw when Grover Stewart left out. Maybe you have like a 5 to 10 yard difference, which is not that crazy already. So I think of it that way because I really want Kenny Moore to be back. And my biggest thing is I want to have Julian Blackman back and add another safety to this roster to where if you have two stud safeties in this secondary, then immediately I look at it and say this defense can automatically get so much better. I would prefer to lose Grover Stewart over that matter than to lose Julian Blackman over a few $1,000,000 and then not be able to sign some more secondary help because the secondary needs more help than I believe the defensive line does right now. And I think that there are more options for Ballard to be able to get some guys in defensive in the free agency and in the draft to have some quality backups that can be that run stopping support that you need. And I think you could do a little bit better of that at the defensive tackle position than you can at the safety market if you didn't want to go that route. So that's at least my opinion on it. I know some people will definitely think differently, but it is what it is. But I really hope that we start seeing some re-signings here soon from Chris Ballard. Again, whoever ends up getting it before. I mean, we're going to upload this video here shortly, but I certainly hope that we start to hear some news before free agency starts picking up. And then, maybe we end up losing a few of these guys. I don't feel like we'll lose anybody that quickly because they're all going to take their time, but you never know. This is going to be the last opportunity for Ballard.
Yep. We'll see exactly who they go after here, who they re-sign, and who they obviously go outside their building and try to bring into their building. But guys, let us know your overall thoughts here on free agency. Are there any guys you want to see the Colts bring back for sure? Any guys that you would be all right if the Colts let them test free agency and walk? What are you willing to pay these free agents, especially the top couple? Let us know all those things in the comments down below. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, guys, go Colts.